Welcome to Week 10 of the Midwest Fantasy Football League. As you may notice, we're in a different location. We'll get to that in a little bit. This week's top score and biggest blowout in the Midwest Bowl, the Gridiron Junkies Andy defeats I Win Because Y'all Drafted Josh 137.88 to 94, a 44-point margin of victory. The Junkies pulled this high score out by the skin of their teeth as Jarvis Landry put up 12.7 points on Monday Night Football, which were just enough to sneak past Pope 1.0 by about a tenth of a point. Leading the Junkies this week was Kirk Cousins and his 30.5 points versus Minnesota. He led the Junkies on to their third high score of the season, so Andy is officially out of debt from this season. Congratulations, Andy. I Win Because Y'all Drafted had his third highest score so far this season, but it still wasn't enough to keep up with Andy's high-powered offense. Josh had the top scorer in this matchup as Cam Newton put up 35.6 points on Monday Night Football in the blowout versus Miami. The 0 points he got from O.J. Howard and the 2.3 points that he got from Houston's defense really hurt him in this matchup. Josh, you're starting to flirt with the current all-time Mendoza line for this league, which is the all-time low score over the course of the season. We think you can, with the math we're looking out, if one big week would put you back up ahead. We'll see if that happens. You've only got 3 more weeks to do so. In terms of close games this season, normally you're talking 1 to 5 points. Generally, we don't have 15 points being the closest matchups. But this week in the rivalry week, it was a week of blowouts. In the Pioneer Bowl, John Bobbitt Chris defeats Dak Dak Deuce Drew 129.4 to 114.1, a 15-point margin or so. Chris was led to victory this week on the strength of 3 22-point-plus performances. Alvin Kamara's 25 points, Sterling Shepard's 23 points, and Tom Brady's 23 points. In the loss, the Deuce got nice games from a crowd of Monday Night Football participants, with Devin Funchess putting up 23 points, Christian McCaffrey putting up 19 points, and Kenyon Drake putting up 16 points. The Deuce had their best available lineup in for the most part. There was a couple tenths of a points that they could have picked up here and there. If you want to look for somebody that was really the blame on this game, you're going to be looking at Jerick McKinnon. He only managed to put up 5.7 points, despite his team hanging a 38-point game on the Washington Redskins. This is the spot where we would normally have the beer review, but as you can probably tell, I'm recording this from the office. Because I have curling at 8 o'clock, I have a couple hours of time to kill, so rather than going and sitting at a bar by myself, hey, I figured I could record this on my work laptop. Had I talked about a beer this week, it probably would be my curling club go-to beer of choice, which would be Busch Light. Hey, at least it's not Bud. In other games this week, last week I referred to this game as the Scott Tire Bowl, and I think I really meant to call it the Scott Trade Bowl. I think that's an insurance company. This week, Pope 1.0, I'm Gumby, dammit, crushed me, Gronky Kong, by a score of 138 to 98. The 34 points that Pope 1.0 got from Mark Ingram couldn't be offset by the duo of Melvin Gordon and Leonard Fournette by my team, as they only managed to combine for 12 points, thus putting me into a 22-point hole, which wouldn't have mattered anyways because I still lost by 38 or something like that. We do have a couple new bowl names this weekend, as some things happened this week that gave me better ideas for names than last week. In this next one, the Italy is as bad as the United States men's soccer team bowl. Down goes Teddy Lee, beats Braver Mojo Jason 119 to 92. At the beginning of the year, I suspect that Lee probably thought he had quite the juggernaut of Aaron Rodgers to Devonta Adams. I'm pretty sure that if you told him by week 10 his juggernaut would be Jared Goff to Robert Woods, who put up 65 points this week, he would not believe you. Jason lost by about 26 points in this matchup. He could have gotten about 20 of that back had he made the right choice at running back from Tennessee, deciding to start Derrick Henry in his flex spot over DeMarco Murray. DeMarco Murray's 27 points sat on his bench, which I can totally understand your pain, bud, because I did the same thing in another league. I got a lot of flack from participants in the Asshole Bowl last week, so Nick would like to formally request that the Asshole Bowl be renamed to, hey, remember the time that Scott and Chris lost to Derek and Nick at Golf Bowl? It's a little wordy. I think we're going to need to work on that title. Derek's love of all things that bounce, I'm at work, defeats Nick's love of the Tebow, 115-73. Adam Thielen's 30 points this week nicely offset the 0.3 points that Devonta Freeman managed to put up before he got hurt versus Dallas. And finally, in the Newbie Bowl, the second coming, Pope 2.0 defeated Saved by the Bell Brandon, 103-84. Pope 2.0 maintains his perfect record all time versus Brandon, moving to 4-0, thanks to a team effort that he had 6 different starters scoring between 10 and 20 points. There were really no massive games in this one, but it was a nice round team effort. Last week's waiver wire guesses were a complete shit show. I thought that there was a bunch of maybe, maybe not. I didn't really see any clear pickups, so I'm not even going to bother talking about them. It wasn't a lot. I don't think I had much right anyways. I do have a couple guesses for this week as well. A couple guys that I thought maybe could get picked up. I don't see any real studs again this week that, hey, I got to have this guy. The only person that I saw that will almost certainly get picked up is because there are Packers, which would be Jamal Williams. He's the third string running back for Green Bay, and with Ty Montgomery maybe going to play this week, maybe not, and Aaron Jones supposedly out 3 to 6 weeks, he may get some starting time. The only reason that I would be picking him up is if you think Green Bay's running game is really that thrilling to watch. I didn't see that against the Bears last week. If you like to be a gambling man, perhaps you'll pick up Rex Burkhead, who you never know. Hey, Bill Belichick, what the hell is he going to do in the backfield? It could be anything, any week. And finally, if you're looking for some wide receiver help this week, Dontrell Inman finally got a start for the Chicago Bears this weekend against the Green Bay Packers defense. He had a decent game with 6 catches for 80-some yards. Perhaps you think the Chicago passing game is legit, and maybe it's not just that Green Bay's defense is garbage. Yet another reminder that the trade deadline is actually this weekend and not last weekend. Sorry for that. Sorry for any camera shaking that happened when I tapped my laptop there. And finally, we should talk about the playoff picture. This will be the start of this, basically the weekly recaps where we start talking about what's going to be looking like for the playoffs. With 3 weeks to go, there's still a lot to be decided. We do know a few things. Josh will almost certainly be in the deuce bracket. He will almost certainly be the number 1 overall seed. Currently trailing 11th place by 3 games and 130 points. It will be nearly impossible for him to make up that deficit before the... Derek and Chris have basically locked up a spot in the playoffs. They're still definitely not locked in 100% sure. They only have both guys have a 2-game lead. With 3 to play, so they'd have to lose probably 2 or 3 games more yet, even though they've only lost 2 so far this season, each team has. And then there's everybody else. There are 9 teams currently sitting between 6-4 and 4-6, so it is going to be a shootout the rest of the season. One thing I specifically noted was that there's a major difference in points scored so far this season, which is generally how the ties are broken and everybody has the same records, between Brandon, who's currently sitting in 4th place. Yeah, Brandon, who's currently sitting in 4th place at 6-4, and Andy, who's currently sitting in 8th place at 4-6. Andy's got a sizable amount more points. Stealth mode. Andy's got a sizable amount more points scored than Brandon does. So should he grab a couple wins and Brandon move back to the middle of the pack, Andy's going to be taking those tiebreakers. Finally, there's some notable games this weekend with the playoffs race starting to round into form. We've got a couple interesting matchups. I'm going to be taking on Andy, 2 teams that are 5-5 and 4-6. Andy's currently rolling, so I'm hoping to avoid getting run over by that train. Pope 1.0 takes on Pope 2.0. The bottom of the 9 teams that are in that middle pack versus the top team in that middle of the pack. So should Pope 1.0 manage to grab a win this week, we could really see some things get ugly with 2 weeks to go in the playoff hunt. And then finally, can either Brandon or Jason, who play Chris and Derek this week, bring either guy back to the pack? Guess we'll find out. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you after week 11.